bathroom door opened before I could knock. Steam rolled out first, curling into the hallway light, and then Sadie stepped through it, wrapped in nothing but a towel that barely reached her thighs, her hair dripping down one shoulder. She stopped when she saw me standing there with a laundry basket in my hands, and for a second neither of us moved. "I forgot my clothes in the dryer," she said, like that explained anything. I should have looked away. Any reasonable man would have looked away. Instead, I stood there in the hallway of the apartment we'd shared for 8 months, holding a basket of my own laundry, watching water bead down her collarbone, and I didn't move a single muscle. She noticed. Of course she noticed. A slow smile crossed her face, equal parts amused and something else I couldn't name yet. "Well," she said, tilting her head, "are you going to look away or not? My name is Marcus Cole. I'm 31 years old, and 8 months ago I was the last person on earth who thought I'd end up living with a woman I wasn't dating, in an apartment neither of us could afford alone, learning things about myself I'd spent years pretending weren't true. Let me back up. I moved to Charlotte for a job, mid-level engineering position, decent pay, the kind of relocation that looks smart on paper and lonely in practice. I didn't know a single person in the city. My old apartment fell through 2 days before my lease started. Some paperwork mix-up with the leasing office that left me scrambling with a moving truck and nowhere to put it. A coworker mentioned her friend was looking for a roommate to split a 2-bedroom near downtown. Said the friend was easy to live with, quiet, worked long hours, wouldn't be underfoot. I called that same afternoon out of pure desperation, half expecting to hate whoever answered. Sadie Voss answered on the second ring. Her voice was warm and a little tired, like she'd just gotten off a shift. "You're not a serial killer, right?" she asked, half joking. "Not that I know of," I said. "Good enough for me. When can you move in?" That was the whole interview. No background check, no awkward coffee meeting to size each other up. Just 2 strangers agreeing to share 4 walls because the timing worked, and neither of us had a better option. The first few weeks were exactly what you'd expect. Polite distance, notes on the fridge about whose milk was whose, a shared bathroom schedule we negotiated over text, because neither of us wanted to have the actual conversation in person. She worked as a labor and delivery nurse, 12-hour shifts that rotated between days and nights, which meant our paths crossed at strange hours. Her coming home exhausted at 7 a.m. as I was leaving for work, me falling asleep on the couch as she was just waking up for a night shift. I noticed things about her I told myself didn't matter. The way she hummed off-key while making coffee, the stack of paperback romance novels on her nightstand that she never tried to hide, even though the covers made me smirk every time I walked past her open door. The fact that she talked to her plants like they could hear her, and somehow every single one of them was thriving, while mine had died within a month. She noticed things about me too, apparently. She told me later she clocked the way I always washed my dish immediately instead of leaving it in the sink, the way I never once complained when her shifts kept her out until dawn, the way I'd leave the porch light on for her without ever mentioning I'd done it. Neither of us said anything for months. That's the thing about living with someone. You build a whole silent language out of small kindnesses, and you tell yourself it doesn't mean what it obviously means. 3 months in, she came home from a brutal shift and found me on the couch, controller in hand, halfway through a video game I'd been avoiding admitting I was obsessed with. She dropped her bag by the door, walked straight past me toward the kitchen, and said without turning around, "Move over. I need to sit somewhere that isn't a hospital chair." I moved over. She sat down close enough that our shoulders touched, grabbed the second controller off the coffee table without asking, and beat me at a game she claimed she'd never played before. She hadn't. She was just naturally, infuriatingly good at everything she tried. That became our thing. Bad nights ended on that couch, controllers in hand, some running joke score kept on a sticky note stuck to the TV. Good nights ended there too, eventually, even when neither of us had a reason to need the comfort. 5 months in, I came home to find her sitting on the kitchen floor, back against the cabinets, crying quietly over a patient she'd lost that day, a stillbirth. She hadn't told anyone else in the apartment building, hadn't called her family, hadn't done anything except sit on our kitchen floor and let it hit her once the adrenaline of the shift wore off. I sat down next to her without saying a word. I didn't know what to say. I just sat there on the cold tile until she leaned her head against my shoulder, and we stayed like that for almost an hour while the ice cream I'd bought for no particular reason melted on the counter above us. "Thank you for not trying to fix it," she said eventually, her voice hoarse. "I wouldn't know how," I admitted. "That's exactly why it helped. I went to bed that night with her head weight still ghosted on my shoulder, and I lay there in the dark, forcing myself to admit something I'd been avoiding for months. This wasn't a roommate situation anymore. Hadn't been for a while. I was falling for a woman who called me her friend, who left thank you notes on my door for things I did without thinking, who fell asleep on our shared couch more nights than not, curled up 2 feet away from me like it was the safest place in the world. I didn't say anything. I told myself the timing was wrong, that she'd just lost a patient, that reading anything into a hard night was cruel and selfish. I told myself a lot of things that month, mostly to keep from doing the one thing that scared me, telling her the truth and risking the only stable thing in my new city. Sadie, it turned out, was doing the exact same math on her side of the apartment. I found that out on a Tuesday in July, the night everything changed. I'd worked late, come home past 9, tired in that specific way where your whole body just wants a shower and silence. I heard the water running when I let myself in, figured Sadie was mid-shower after her own long shift, and went to grab clean clothes out of the dryer for the morning. That's when the bathroom door opened. She stood there in nothing but a towel, dripping, her cheeks flushed from the hot water, and instead of the mild embarrassment I expected, she just looked at me. Really looked, the way she'd never let herself look before, like something in her had decided it was tired of pretending. "I forgot my clothes in the dryer," she said. I stood there with a laundry basket between us like a shield I hadn't meant to build, and I did not look away. Not for 1 second. My eyes stayed exactly where they shouldn't have, and my brain short-circuited trying to come up with an apology that never made it out of my mouth. She smiled slow, tilted her head, water still sliding down her collarbone. "Well," she said, "are you going to look away or not?" The question hung there between us, and I realized in that moment it wasn't really a question about looking. It was every unspoken thing from the last 8 months finally demanding to be said out loud. "No," I said. My voice came out rougher than I meant it to. "I'm not." Something shifted in her expression. Surprise, then something warmer underneath it, like she'd been hoping for exactly that answer, and hadn't let herself believe she'd get it. "Good," she said quietly, "because I'm tired of pretending I don't want you looking." The laundry basket hit the floor. I don't remember deciding to drop it. "Sadie." "Don't," she said, stepping closer. Close enough that I could smell the vanilla shampoo she always used. Close enough that the towel was the only thing keeping any distance between us at all. "Don't apologize. Don't make this weird. I've spent 5 months watching you leave that porch light on for me. Watching you memorize my shift schedule better than I do. Watching you sit on a cold kitchen floor with me at midnight because you didn't know what else to do except be there. I know what that means, Marcus. I've known for a while." "I didn't want to ruin things," I said. "You're the best part of moving to this city. I didn't want to gamble that on a feeling you might not share." "I might not share it?" She let out a small laugh, disbelieving. "I bought a new bathrobe 3 weeks ago, specifically because I wanted an excuse to walk past your door in it. I have been engineering reasons to touch your shoulder for months. I am, apparently, an incredibly patient woman who has been waiting for you to catch up." I stood there in that hallway, steam still curling around us, and every single reason I'd built for staying quiet collapsed at once. "I love you," I said, because apparently that was the moment my brain chose to stop being careful. "I've loved you for months, and I've been terrified of saying it because I didn't want to lose the easiest, best thing in my life over a feeling you might not want." Sadie's eyes went glassy, and she closed the last foot of distance between us, one hand coming up to rest against my chest, right over the pounding of my own heart. "I love you too," she said. "I have for a long time. Long enough that I stopped being scared of it and started being scared you'd never say anything." I kissed her then, finally, months of unspoken tension collapsing into a single moment in a hallway that smelled like her shampoo and my forgotten laundry. She kissed me back like she'd been waiting exactly as long as I had, one hand fisting in my shirt to pull me closer, the towel forgotten between us in every way that mattered. Later, much later, sitting tangled together on the same couch where we'd spent 100 quiet nights building toward this without either of us admitting it, Sadie traced a lazy pattern against my arm and asked the question I should have seen coming. "So what happens now? We're still roommates. Rent's still due on the 1st. "I think," I said, pulling her closer, "we stop calling it roommates." She laughed, the real kind, the kind that used to make my whole week better before I understood why. "What do we call it instead?" "I don't know," I admitted. But I know I'm not sleeping in my own room tonight, and I know I want to leave that porch light on for you for the rest of my life, not just the nights you work a shift." She went quiet for a moment, studying my face, the way she used to study charts before a hard shift, looking for something she needed to be sure of. "Okay," she said finally, soft and certain. "Then I guess we're doing this." "We're doing this," I agreed. "It's been 4 months since that night in the hallway. The lease is still in both our names, except now it means something different than it did when we signed it as strangers, splitting rent out of pure necessity. Her romance novels are still stacked on the nightstand, except now it's our nightstand. The porch light still comes on every night she works a shift, and every single time, she tells me it's the first thing she looks for when she turns onto our street. Sometimes I think about how close I came to never saying anything, how many nights I sat 2 feet away from the woman I loved, convincing myself the distance was safer than the truth. And then I think about a towel and a laundry basket and a question asked in a steam-filled hallway, and I remember that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is simply refuse to look away.